A story about Joseph Kingman, a true force brought forward by the basic human intelligence to survive and the nature to question and oppose the ideologies of those who claim sanity. Joseph was a small boy growing up in a cottage on a farm on the outskirts of a town where only small things happened, predictable like clockwork. The small number of people who occupy this town remain in their routines and rarely think of anything outside of their own town's existence. Joseph's father is an antique rescue and restoration man.
He fixes the broken things, he finds the problem, repairs it by gluing the stuff up, and sells it or gives it back,
Joseph would always have to explain. His mother liked baking pies, but never ate any of them.
Sure do love the smell of those pies, princess.
Joseph started imitating his father. The pies were always perfect, all sorts of flavors. Some loved and others loathed. For instance, lamb's brains gravy was always a winner. However, pumpkin surprise was always frightfully dreaded for its surprise. Collecting currants for dessert pie was one of Joseph's favorite jobs. He always ate as many as he could, collecting them. On arriving back to the house with the currants filled to the brim with the basket he carried, Joseph's mother would always thank him with a smile and giggle, saying,
"Thank you, Count Dracula. I'm forever your humble servant."
Joseph didn't learn about Count Dracula until later on in life. When he did finally realize the joke his mother had always insisted on repeating every time he collected the currants for the pie, the laughter's bellows and echoes of the punchline that long lived. As a child, the dark red and purple currant juice had been staining his lips and chin for days. Although Joseph had many animals on the farm, like cows and chickens and horses and the lone fox every now and then, none of them were ever pets. There were more animals than Joseph could care for alone. None of them were ever cared for like pets. They were all cared for as stock, work animals, breeding, for eating, so pets were almost foreign to Joseph. Joseph remembered in a trail of thought trying to explain a pet to his mother.
A pet is one of those fluffy things and you love and you hug and you kiss and all that. I never had a pet, and then I guess I think I would like that. I'll call it Calvin and it could lay on my bed at night.
A trail of thought Joseph expressed to his mother. And by a twist of fate, Calvin came in. It does not matter of his origin story, nor it matters of his faith, as such as others long rested by the pine trees. There were many animals called pets in the years to come. Joseph did not want another one. A few months passed, and Joseph was asked to join his parents in the living room, where Joseph was informed that his mother was pregnant, and they would soon be celebrating the birth of a baby sister. A quick few months passed, and Cohen, blue eyes and white to the world. With her first birthday, another fluffy pet joined the family, but shortly after would meet its demise, buried under the pine trees and eaten by the earth, and will be gone, like those before and like those after. You see, it's not sinister, but those dogs, cats, mice, and guinea pigs have all met a natural demise by land and nature and water, and fever and natural disaster. None of them have lasted forever, ever.
Dad, the perspex lid on a guinea pig's cage is really warm. It was in the sun all day and roasting out there, and I've had a quick look, but all I could see were fluff balls.
Joseph later explained the fluff balls to his father.
"Well, they're gone."
His father stated bluntly. Joseph built the stained memories of which each loved pet met its demise by natural causes and events. All of this had become humorous to Joseph. Joseph had a curiosity growing inside him and began contemplating the coincidental reflections that fueled the spontaneous deaths.
Dad, Madison had 4 pups, and now I can only see 3. Where is the third?
A loud crunch comes from the corner of the dog's shed, staining the brain with an image to never forget. Madison had ate her own newborn puppy. Over the next few weeks, she continued to eat random items and the behavior excelled anything healthy. The dog was beginning to eat her own shit. She was put to rest due to thick venom poisoning her brain. Chapter 2. Who are you? You are who? A gift is always welcomed when the gift is given by those admired, affirmed a bond, a connection, a timeless thought, imprinting a permanent moment of admiration. For Joseph, this was when his father invited him to the workshop, the barn full of antique furniture, half-repaired parts, stashed and stored like a jungle of puzzles, waiting to be assembled, fixed, and put back together, restored for a second life, limbs of a table made to a chandelier now hanging from the roof and spinning on what was once a wagon wheel. His father led him to the workshop table, and on the table, an item, the item covered with a red cloth stained in pine oils. His father dramatically builds up anticipation ever so slowly, removing the cloth to reveal, through the reflective shimmering of the sunlight pouring through the window, Joseph's blurring eyes come clear, rubbing his eyes to make focus to see a lime green box reading the label Boston, and below 200 FM radio. The shiny silver knobs for tuning, wide range of station selection, the long-range antenna pulled to its tallest peak. Joseph was in a moment of shock, joy, and excitement. Joseph took a moment to thank his father and asked, "Father, is this an early gift for my birthday?" His father replied in a cracked voice, clearing his throat. His father's brittle attempt at saying "I love you," but Joseph understood. Joseph's father continued to say, hugging Joseph from head to chest with a pat on the head. And now Joseph was set on his way, heading back to his room to power up his Boston 200 FM radio. He began tuning through the festivities of jazz music, tuning through and hearing for the first time classical guitar, violins, trumpets, voices of enlightened wonders. Unheard before, like spice, sounds flooded the ears with warmth, ruminating down the spine, meeting the sounds of bass on the floor as the frequency merged with his heartbeat. Adrenaline flooded the brain, a natural dopamine high, releasing the undeniable edge to dance when never danced before. Of all the new sounds to be heard, it was a voice that emerged from the tradition of static gestation, a voice that at first could be mistaken for a vibrant advertisement campaign meant for an audience of military personnel, a voice crisp, deep in sound, but with an upbeat tone that seemed positive and irritatingly likable. As he spoke with a classic edge, the words danced and rolled off the tongue, as if every word was premeditated and practiced to perfection. The voice in the radio was soon known to be Leroy Harvey, a professor of historical education and a hobbyist of herbal medicine. As the professor introduced himself through the radio, Joseph listened with content, and all other sounds faded away into the distance. Professor Leroy spoke of many adventures, tales of discovery, cures and ailments from foreign places and foreign lands where only the dearest men traveled. Joseph listened, dreaming of the same discoveries and adventures beyond a small farm in a small town. Learning and listening was his escape of all the admirations. It was Leroy's voice Joseph was listening to, admiring, a sense of optimism in each phrase growing, creating an image of a tall man, well-spoken in every word, neat facial hair and a top hat to match. To imagine a way he would move, to pronounce the sounds of each word with his body in the way Leroy would, to travel beyond the fragile town walls like Leroy would, to interact with the world presenting only as Leroy would. Who are you? I am you. Joseph's desire to imitate grows intensely, practicing each word, each movement premeditated and presented upbeat, spinning a positive light into every word, every single gesture, even if the conversation was doom and gloom. The punctuality expressed would express the emotional intelligence of a person beyond their own years. And now practiced and perfected. Who am I? A personality that needed a name. This couldn't be Joseph. It's just not him. A new name for a new face, a name born from natural character. Pausing for a moment. Hello, Joe. Joseph greeting himself in the reflection of the bedroom window. Joe was a name that seemed simple enough. Joseph went to work building on an outfit for his new personality and alter ego, Joe. Of course, his mother was happy to help him when he asked for materials to make a mini tuxedo. Helen asked, "Why a mini tuxedo?" Joseph replies in a cool, calm voice, "So I could look good." Without further questions, Helen begins shaping and forming a mini tuxedo with a complementary vest. The old paper design lays spread out as the materials are cut from old curtains, the material that his father Mark had brought from the markets only weeks ago. Helen, now donating to her son's expression, cuts and weaves and saws and shreds and reforms. When Joseph's father came in to see the carnage, Helen stated in a giggling voice, "Don't worry, dear. Those dreadful curtains were never going to hang from these walls." Helen and Joseph giggle in a memorable moment. Mark pauses and slowly turns around and creeps his way out of the room. This infested the giggles to become hysterical laughter. They both roll around on the floor holding their bellies for what seemed to be an eternity. Finally, after hours, Helen had finally finished. She made a reversible dark tone green jacket with a deep purple lining the inside, purple slacks with matching braces sewed to the seam. The white boot covers gave a sense of gangsta. However, the complementing vest gave an image of sophistication. It was fashion perfection. Joseph's arm slid into each sleeve. The sensation of the material on his skin was transforming. Each leg glided into position, representing an ascension. Each button closed confirmed the perfection of the outfit. Parading the awesome tuxedo his mother had made, Joseph made his way to the mirror that was fixed to the living room wall. Staring for a moment, with his head tilted, the reflection reminded him of himself, Joseph. Joseph decided that this face was not his face. It was not the face of Joe. He had to make a way for his alter ego, Joe, and Joe would need a face. Being a supportive mother of four, Helen was happy to play along. She provided a powder patch and mascara, and seeing Joseph apply it to himself was humorous to Helen as she watched on. Joseph, now as Joe, presented himself to Helen in a flare. The black patchy eyes, pale white thick powder, green eyebrows and touch of rose on the cheeks. The surprised turnaround jump-scared Helen and caused a hiccup laugh that she had to swallow quickly to save any embarrassment. The fully formed Joe, now and forever, shining brightly in his glory. Joe turns to Helen, greeting her for the first time in a spontaneous personality. "Hello there, Helen. I hear you've been good to me, with cups of love and plates of hugs, keeping away those nasty bedbugs." The fashion and form of Joe, as twisted and turned, was distorted and deliberate. He started with each word as if he plucked it from the air with his fingertips. Premeditated words blend with movements as he awaits her reply. Proud and happy, Helen reciprocates. Helen directed Joe to, "Go show your father." So he does, making his way to the shed, Joe now knocking on the workshop doors filled with anticipation of his father's reaction. "Tappity tap tap," Joe said with flair.
"Yeah, come through."
Mark was sitting at his workbench. As Joe approached, the smell of stain filled the air, and Mark turned.
"Wow, hello you."
Mark welcomes Joe. "Hello, Mark. How's the work?" asked Joe.
"Good, but I do have to ask, who do we have here? I never seen this one before."
Mark leans over to ask,
"Who are you?"
as he plays along to the show and tell performance. "Joe," with a close reply.
"Joe."
His father repeated. "That is me. Now you see, this is me, happy like a buzzing bee." Joe expelled in a confined space of the workshop. Mark chuckled and asked if he could add to this perfect disaster, and turned to the workstation, grabbing a paintbrush from a tin of some sort, tapping off the excess residue. Mark, wanting to join in the fun, said,
Happy hey, let's put a smile on that face.
Joe excitedly agrees, placing one hand on Joe's head. Paintbrush runs ear to ear, as if being dubbed with enlightenment and independence by the sword. This statement created an outrageous smile that perfectly aligned with the egotistical values of the newly formed personality, now truly a Kingman, a celebration of what was Joe's first initiation ceremony. The thick, oily brush gives a cold sensation as the liquid is smeared over the lips, feeling every bristle as it glides from one mouth edge to his outer cheekbone and coming back again, covering both sides with an oily black paint.
Now, who are you?
Mark asks Joe. Joe, he replies. Mark corrects Joe, saying,
You're Joe Kingman.
Joe Kingman, rippled and repeated. Joe Kingman, Joe Kingman, Joe Kingman, Joe Kingman, the name Joe Kingman resonating, repeating throughout space and time forever. For the name Joe Kingman is a name that will change a future, creating a culture and drive freedom and revolution to the limits, a legacy unchallenged and unforgiving, idealized and memorable moments to be obsessed by all his people and feared by those who oppose the obsession. Joe had worn his tuxedo and matching accessories for 3 days straight, and was advised by Helen to wash and change. This turned into a demand, and the demand must be performed immediately. Joseph had returned. In the following days, Joseph dreamed of being Joe Kingman again. What he would do, who he would see, what the future will hold, how to represent Joe as his small world dramatically expands and develops new thoughts and ideas. How nature will develop the demand of natural selection and sacrifice, how to survive, to become consciously evolving and live free as nature wants us to be. One day, like all the other days, Joseph's father was out on a market hunt. Turning his trade as he often said, his mother was preoccupied with the twins, Nadine and Dominic. Joseph thought this to be the perfect time to visit Joe Kingman. Visit was the term that came to be known for the changeover in the institutions Joseph would reside in for years to come. Same as he prepared in recent events, the tuxedo slipped on, face makeup applied, and Joseph went on a hunt for the final phase of the transformation ceremony, finding his way through Dad's workshop in a dim light fluttering through the window. Finally finding the paintbrush as he used before, smearing the oily residue from inner mouth edge to the outer cheekbone. The oily residue painted a smile from cheek to cheek. Joe paused, stepped forward into the light. The oil instantly began burning, blistering, and bubbling. It was not oil. He had not seen what his father applied previously and assumed it was the same substance. However, regrettably, it was not. It was a chemical called euphonic acid, a powerful and effective paint stripper. Joe's face burnt like fire, the acid fizzling, squalls of pain bellow out, the stretching of the skin breaking and detaching as if melting to the bone on both sides of his face. The expression of horror fills every cell, pumping hot blood throughout the nervous system. A permanent smile had found its way to Joe's face. In a state of panic, he tried scratching and rubbing his face with his fingers, trying to rub away the intoxicating pain of acid. The acid spreads to his fingertips, melting away the top layers of flesh. With one last breath, Joe screamed out in tormented pain. The acid blistered and bubbled, exposing raw flesh from inner mouth edge to the outer cheek as he screamed. The cracked trails of white and black makeup seeped into chemical compounds that leaked down the edges into the exposed flesh, now permanently embedded. Mixing with pre-applications of the powder foundation, the color seeped into the carnage and damaged the tissue and raw flesh. This would be the final phase that is buried into the minds of millions and feeds on the souls infested with fear. Helen, hearing the cries, ran into the workshop, knocking shelves, slumbering over bits and pieces, leaping forward in a race to get to her son laying on the floor, coming closer and seeing carnage. Helen fell faint after screaming in shock, falling to the floor, and her arms knocked the table, causing everything to fall in all directions, tipping the very same acid tin over. The entire tin spilling over the bench. The liquid moves like lava, making its way to the edge of the bench, just above where Helen lay. The acid dribbled off the bench, landing next to Helen's face on the floor, the acid splashing. The fiery liquid sprayed the side of Helen's face in a violent mass, hitting her ear, melting away flesh, hair, half of Helen's face mutated, blistering, with gestating pain, the acid making its way through the inner ear, the blood cells flushing the spread of the acid, scorching the brain, burning fundamental fragments of humanity from Helen's fragile mind. Helen could only inhale air as she threw back her head in pain, twisted, bent, frozen in pain. The fear forced every muscle to be squeezed, filled with terror and torment. As she lay there fading into darkness, Joseph remained unconscious and unaware of the misfortune that had followed his experience. Helen, seeing him there, let out a scream of pure mayhem and fell unconscious. A misfortune that life has exposed with the trail of natural events, the smell, the taste, the unshakable dread of life before death moment. As they both wheeled in pain, help faded into the land of dreams. Joe remembered seeing stars fill Joe's eyes. Then darkness came before the light filled the room, timeless like a dream, nightmares in the dark corners waiting for the opportunity to be dreamt. This would be known as the second near-death experience. Regrettably, this fate sealed Helen into a spiral of pain and misery, facing a disconnection to her family and life itself. As the medical report later read, Helen shows two sides of life. One still had hope, love, care. The other, bitter, dizzy, and foul, willing to rely on chance, gambling at the edge of life. Aggressive, impulsive, unpredictable, Helen has harmed herself and others. Maximum security required. As for Joe's fate, this was only the beginning. Chapter 3. The Death of Our Father. Laying in a white bed with white sheets and white walls, a boy with scars for life, recovering from a serious injury, shadows himself from the light. Only once was he heard to speak.
Turn it off.
Cracked and rumbled, broken voice filled with irritation and dislike, the lights permanently kept dim therefore and after. Consumed by pain, every expression was forced through a burning reminder of healing flesh. With the absence of normative interactions, words became useless. The greeting of nurses, passing of doctors became like plates of windowed glass, thin and transparent, moving past in moments of time. When needing treatment, Joe learned to look past the reflective mirrors, learning what was enough communication, to seek what he required. If thirsty, needing water, he learned to smack his lips till those listening would be enough to meet his needs. When desired to be clean, he learned a small struggle with his clothing was enough to meet desires. This learning continued. Joe wondered why speaking and speech and talking was so relative to human nature and the interpretation of communication between each other in such a way. Joe had many questions, but this question was a fire burning for enlightening. Why are humans the only species to talk? Why are they gifted with the lines, the love, the laughter, the stories passed from father to son? Why humans and no other species? For the first time, Joe in a long heard another child's voice. The voice of a child is matched with footsteps, the footsteps fast and running. The door bursts open and quickly closes as the child is heard hiding behind from the corner chair. In the dim light, only shadows can be seen as Joe woke up in a shock to ask,
Who's there?
What? Who's there? It's Joseph, silly. Too much sleeping has made your brain all mushy, the voice replied. The human race is at the height of evolution. It has worked its way across the globe, spreading periodically in time, evolving, changing, coming to a climax. But evolution only allows one winner, so the humans will war. These wars are consumer souls of many, and for ages the battle will continue until there is only one race, one human, one being. Joseph giving his answer to the previous question of humanity.
I see.
Joe exclaimed in his exhaling breath. Ready to reply, excited for conversation, Joe raises the light a little to see a face that has come to visit. A first visit. Raising the light, Joe asks,
Joseph, that's a nice name.
Joe felt some ease and a moment of connection distracting the pain from his face. The nurse stumbled in surprise.
Hey, Spike, did you know he could do that?
She asked her colleagues close by.
No, I never heard. Who was he speaking to?
Joe looked at a chair to continue the conversation. Seeing nothing but an empty chair, there was no boy there. The nurse acted as if there never was. She looks to Joe and asks,
Are you okay over there?
Joe scoffed in despair and rolled and curled in a ball in his white bed with white sheets. Tears of loneliness filled his eyes, and as they fell onto the sheets it turned from white to red. Through the damaged tissue of the nasal passage and scalded tear ducts watered down tears of blood and wiped away with his white sleeve. Seeing the stains,
Finally, some color.
Joe proclaimed. The nurses reported this event to the forwarding doctor and also made claims about the client's behavior. A man with glasses and a clipboard walks into the darkened room looking all puffed up and powerful. Why is the light so dim, son? The man asked without a reply.
Joseph Kingman,
he stated. With a cracked and broken voice, a dry smack of the lips, Joe leans forward making a shadow through the light. Joe asked,
Well, which one are you, my father or Joseph?
The voice in pain but with an upbeat tone. I'm Dr. Kent. The doctor introducing himself with hand to chest.
Is that so? Nurse!
The nurse came rushing to the bedside.
What's the matter?
She asked.
I think one of the patients has escaped and found their way into my bedroom.
Joe stated to the nurse.
Why would you think that, mister?
She asks.
Well, you see the fellow standing there with hand to chest. He called me son. Then he said his name was Joseph. Now he's claiming to be a doctor.
Joe expelled calmly to the nurse.
Well, this is the most I've heard you talk, mister. The fellow there, well, he is your doctor, and yes, he is a doctor. He's a neurophyllogenic rehabilitation psychologist,
she explained. The doctor and Joe talked for some time, but nothing focused, nothing deep or outrageous. A conversation, a first in a long time, but like many others, mundane and medically focused, until Kent's questions went more in depth about family members and bloodlines. Kent avoided questions from Joe about the outside world. Days lost evidence of change as months joined years and years begun to blend. Information, vital information. Kent gathering as much as information about the young man to begin the first stage of experimental treatment. Kent's dreams up a reality of his long thought out plan, perfected on paper. Blood samples, vials of eliminating green liquid are ready to implement. A well thought out plan perfected by madness to transform a young man into an unseen force of darkness goes unnoticed as Kent is driven by obsession to heal his son. A young boy grows into a young man, taller, thinner, lankier, and slinky-like. A face unseen hides behind the bandages, left with fragments of memories of a life that existed so many years ago. A plotted plan. Over years he perfected the implementation of the experiment on this young man. Joe, a passenger of chaos, observed, learned, and obtained information just as Kent did. Dr. Kent's treatments began pretty rough. It was a punishment for thousands of sins before they were made. But the interaction was learned as love in time. Joe welcomed a friend called Pain. A routine date, falling in love to an emotional pain, physical treatment of drugs and wires became addictive, longed for, more of the same. It seemed insane. It is all meant to be. Who really knew this place what it meant to be? Sane insanity forced into fire. Every week, it's a relationship.
Honeymoon period, baby.
Joe said excitedly as he made his way towards Kent's treatment facility once again. Showing the cracks of insanities, Joe's mind grows dark, with no light to view and escape. Love what you have or die alone. As the good doctor simply described during most sessions, the electrobinary formulated into waves matching the human brain waves to induce a healing process, pulsated around the body with blood being the conductor sparking the cells to regenerate. The treatment was turning Joe's skin pale, drawing blood from his cells to fuel the rage through the body, the rage pulsating, activating each cell with adrenaline and electricity. The humming of the electric pulse resonating through each cell bone, each vein, violent vibrations burned to confusion of euphoria and tormented flesh. Throughout the session, Joe remained silent. No strain or struggle. Joe just grinned within the bandages, laughing replaced screams of pain, as if time stood still, the stress on his body and bleach of the chemicals finally turning his hair pale gray and fading white. Lethargic, unable to move, every muscle worked and pounded, he is limp, numb, left without much care. His transporters dragged Joe to the cleansing chair. Powerless to defend with his body, weak, he is thrown backwards, dunked into green compound, made of the doctor's discretion. As if in slow motion, the chair falls backwards into a tub filled with unknown goop. The doctor's face lights up with excitement. A rapture, my boy. The doctor Kent states in a deep, ominous tone, greeting his hand to Joe's forehead, dunking Joe further under the goop. As Joe struggles for breath, the slow rising bubbles reach the surface. The bubbles pop, screaming with his fighting breath, until silence. Under the goop, his eyes fill with stars. The last breath leaves his body, familiar already, eases his body into the third near-death experience. Eternity in moments fragmented by the pulsating brain reaching for life. The goop parts as Joe arises, gasping for air, throwing himself to the side of the tub. The goop dribbles down to the floor from his hair, Joe's hair now green from the chemical formula. Without care, his feet drag along the ground, reaching his room. He is thrown back into the darkness. The sessions of infusion to heal broken cells became frequent, a daily routine becoming expected, until one day they just stopped.
No apology, no goodbye, nothing, not even a see you later.
Joe stated aloud when the doctor didn't show for the third day.
For all the pain, you're just gone.
For the first time in a long time, Joe felt rage. Rage that filled his head. Rage pumped his heart. Rage filling his body. Rage. The room was ripped apart. Joe's red tears feed color to the walls. Rage! Rage! Hours passed like minutes. It wasn't until the sun arose from the night Joe was calm enough to sit still, doing so for days after, still catatonic. Weeks passed. Joe overhears one of the nurses talking to the other while changing the beds.
Didn't you hear what happened with Dr. Kent?
No, I didn't, the other nurse replied.
Well, he was at the theater with his missus and 2 little boys. There was 3 fellas that broke in out the back alley. They shot him and his wife dead, cutting them down in a botched robbery. Both parents killed in front of their little ones.
Well, really? What else do you know? The nurse asked the other.
Well, the Kent family came out right into the mix of it. Just then the crooks ran out of the back door of the jewelry shop and pop, 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 They said the little ones, Clark and Bruce, were shot as well, but the robber was knocked down by another and fumbled before running off. Poor little ones, probably off to an orphanage. I don't know how Bruce will go. He only just had a surprise recovery from some mysterious disorder where he could not walk. He is still on crutches and he's barely able, the nurse expressed. Joe stood up in shock, powerless for revenge, powerless to express the pain and the rage. Joe did not feel loss, no grief, no turmoil. Rage, just rage, undirected, internal rage. Joe makes his way slowly to the chair wedged into the corner of the room, sitting in darkness. Days pass, weeks even. Who really knows? Lost, peering through the shadows, lurking on the darkest edges of the mind's ability. On a day like all other days, the door opens in a flood of burning light.
Joseph?
A petite voice questions. As the light eases on his eyes, Quinn's face comes to focus.
Quinn? My darling? How's Helen and the twins? Oh, and what about Mark? Probably gloom and doom, I suppose.
Joe asked with spaced-out questioning, drawn between breaths, his voice deep and crackling with each word painful when spoken. However, behind the words and the pain, an upbeat tone drowns out the frightful observation made in the shadows as he spoke.
Your Boston radio brother!
Quinn explained with hope of excitement.
What? No hug? No kiss? Just because you're ugly? Pucker up, mister. I love ya.
Quinn, playfully covering Joe with kisses, threw the bandages and green hair that covered most of his face, dampening the contact. However, he still felt an impact of a place called home. Crying in laughter as they joke and rumble like siblings would, a moment of peace, a moment of clarity that meant everything will be all right. Quinn would often catch the bus to the recovery unit to visit her brother and mother, until one day her mother no longer recognized who she was, lashing out in violence and crazy profanities of wild prophecies of a world at its demise. Not long after, things changed and time was spent differently. 1 year passed to the next. Routines and mundane requests were made. Her brother moved to a unit closer to the family home. It was in these visits that Joe learned their father had been jailed for a botched robbery, where innocent people were killed in front of their children. Bruce, a boy in a wheelchair, and an older son, Clark. Bruce and Clark, another story to be told. One born on another world, the other born with the path of life and love and humanity, one who raises to the heavens and seen as God, and the other brother fallen, hidden in the shadows. Healed by his father's work, he walks again, later returning with a major world-changing cure for infections, becoming a billionaire by day and indulging in the shadows of the night, both victims to justice. Joe's father, Mark, claimed in the courts that he was trying to raise money for his dying wife and sick child, trying to pay for hospital bills and treatments. His father also agreed that Dr. Kent's experimental treatment sacrificing his humanity to the side effects of death, including his own life, faded away like a burnt-out candle, stumped out as a witness to crime. A father he was and always in our thoughts. However, before his death is not to be dismissed so quickly. His story led to unfortunate events that must be told for Joe's story to be unfolded. During his struggles, driving back and forth, questioning each day, Mark often asked the air,
Where's the money going to come from? I could work, move, but the kids, I can't afford the sitter. Shit, I'm struggling to pay the gas and dinner. The kids are getting thinner.
Mark often mumbled to himself during the drive. On a day like all the other days, Mark would meet another woman, young and pretty, fun and on the run. It all began when Mark, driving, questioning the very air he breathed, life seemed hopeless. The rain begins to fall on the windscreen, the fuel is running low. Stopping at the station for gas, filling with what he had in his pocket, Mark goes to pay for gas like every other time,
only seconds pass. Jumping in and starting the car, driving on a wet road into the distance.
Please don't kill me.
A voice squeaked from the back seat under the old dusty jacket. Mark jumped, swearing out loud, holding his heart.
What the fuck? Who the fuck?
Mark questioned, already knowing it was a female from the voice. A young woman tries to hide, pulls her head out from under the dusty jacket, covering herself the best she can. She uncovers her face, a pretty blonde young lady, shades her bruised eyes, blonde and beautiful. Mark asked,
What's going on?
I'm so sorry. It's my boyfriend. He was hitting me and I needed to get away from him, mister, so I just started running. I'm sorry if I scared you, mister.
The girl apologized as she explained.
What's your name?
Mark asked.
I'm Harley,
she stated.
I'm Mark.
They got to know each other a little better on a drive. The situations that arise are how we fight or take flight. Mark enjoyed the company, so he drove and just kept driving, forgetting all directions. The tank read low and the sun fell to the horizon. Harley and Mark made their way back to the family home, being just what he needed and what she needed, an answer to his prayers, a person to help, someone to be there. Harley's company was great, but she was a rabbit. She often had explanations to what this meant, but this one was,
I'm a rabbit, you see, running, jumping, and always moving, you see. It may look pretty, me jumping, running, and looking free, but I'm not free, rather always escaping, jumping to the air to escape the snakes, running on the ground to escape the birds, dashing between trees to escape predators and unknown enemies. But still, I feel pretty, jumping, running. I love the rush of dashing past and under and over everything else as it seems to move ever so slower than me.
Harley became very comfortable in the home. She always had a sense of shameless behavior, whether it being saving money but stealing toilet paper from the public toilets, or walking in underwear to the clothesline, taking the neighbors' coupons, or doing reverse charity stall. She was always the funniest at night, pretty clever and super bright. Mark was falling in love. Quinn was falling in love. The twins had already fallen in love. But you can't keep a free spirit held down. A rabbit will run for freedom and for fun. Harley and Mark had a fun time, but with Harley's connection to the underworld of crimes, she contacted a friend of a friend, whose efforts to help led to his demise, incarcerated for crime that left 2 people dead and 2 children without their parents. Guilt led to his end, hanging from the jail cell. Harley ran, the twins cared for by Uncle Tony and his wife. Quinn ran and often found her way back to the family home. For years, the house lay in decay, the animals long gone, the work shed burned to the ground in a fit of rage her father had some time ago. Quinn would often reside there for days, hoping her only friend Harley would return, until one day she did. On a day like all other days, Quinn looks to the dusty driveway, seeing a figure walking towards the house. Hips sway side to side as the person came closer.
Harley!
Quinn stated, running to her open arms. Harley had returned. Quinn and her would reconnect. Returning to the family home, Quinn and Harley's care and Harley becoming a mentor for Quinn. The scams, the sins, the magic, the glitter, glamorous lines, the life of a rabbit. These are the years that formed the name and the life of Harley Quinn. Helen was unvisited and unloved and alone. The touch of human flesh became a wasted, dead land of wishes. So she plundered, taking her time to form, to collect, to grind, to make ways to the bars, whose suits and white walls Helen grew hope. I hope of more, to plunge into the future and master a purity of chance. Yes or no, black or white, I do not want to hear excuses. It is do or die. I vow with rage and vengeance as my power, I will be the master. Helen raged on, and the rambles faded into the distance of time. Many years later, the unit in the hospital burned down to the ground, with faulty wires being the cause. Some survivors returned after rebuilding, but Helen's body was never found. Chapter 4: Cause of Nature or Curse of Nature.
Thank you, Tesla, for the radio.
The Rat Utopia experiment, delivered on live radio, reports coming in weekly, with scientist interviews and extended documentary coverage narrated by Professor Leroy Harvey as he presents Rat Utopia and the Behavioral Sink. Dominated and submitted, the divided, the rejects, the beautiful ones, social groups take form. Leroy described the Rat Park Society with intermittent investment. He stated that they have been provided with a safe place away from elements, predators, supplied with food, water, and an addictive drug called morphine. The experiment was for one reason. What would overpopulation in this environment look like? The caged pen built like a small city. As Leroy Harvey beautifully described, the behavioral sink began when the population hit its peak. Different personalities fight for dominance. Social placement is enforced. Lessons learned well by Joe, who grew his own impressions of human society from very relevant words that simulate evolution or demise. Among all the chaos and anarchy, the social conformity and domination, there remained one type of rat that was unfazed by petty greed and placement of the order. There were the beautiful ones. The beautiful ones remained unchallenged. Unfastened by the surroundings, they remained happy and healthy and beautiful. The beautiful ones are representative of the beauty that the species could achieve, something to save as the world fell apart and decay, death, disappearance, and desperation. In the final report, they all fell, driven to the edges of hell in their own extinction. The experiment was terminated, concluding that population growth is unsustainable even under perfect conditions, an unforgettable impression of human society. In A Course of Nature, Joe was transformed to a new facility. The brochure read, Our Chrome Asylum, a place of recovery for those needing humanity. With daily activities to make learning fun, our clients learn skills, long-term skills to carry them on once they leave our doors to continue into a brave new world of the beyond. Joe reads in a whisper as he travels on a transportation bus. A voice from over his shoulder quells.
It's all bullshit, you know? Death, all fucking bastards and death. The shit is nuts. This place is for crazy people. The shit is insane. Slave labor and torture. If you don't conform or if you complain, they pull out your teeth and they claim your violent behavior of insanity is a danger to other people. They'll lock you up and throw away the key, bro. You know you never be seen again, dear cuz.
The man's voice said frightfully in a strange unknown accent. Joe had never heard the accent before, not even through his Boston radio.
I'm sure it will be fine,
Joe replied calmly to the frightened voice coming from the seat behind him. The voice behind Joe asked,
Shit, man, what happened to you?
questioning the bandages that covered Joe's face. Turning to answer, Joe sees a man with darkened skin, like he had been in the sun and tanned instead of burning, his wide brown eyes staring, his large lips protruding from his face, his tight black locks hair bounced with the bumps of the road. Joe had never seen a man with this skin color before. Coming from a small town with small-minded people, the town never had visitors. Joe only had a radio to imagine what the outside world looks like. Curious Joe in question replied,
Tell me what happened to you. What, fellow? What you asking?
He replied,
Why so dark? Was it too much sun? What there, fella? You never seen a black fella before, huh? A black fella like me, with me beautiful brown skin, me beautiful brown eyes, me brown curly hair and perfect white teeth.
The dark man asked. Joe replies,
No, never. Well, mate, okay then. I'm Barry, black fella, an Ambrosianal from down under. I'm the only me but my mob down there. They expecting me home, but I'm going the wrong direction.
Joe asked many questions after the introduction, Barry forgetting his question about the cloth that masked Joe's face. Over the first few days, they became closer and more like friends, sharing stories over meals in the mess hall. Joe learned about Barry's heritage, how his people come from the stars, and how they lived as one with the land and nature. Until one day, like all other days, his people were tricked when they offered kindness to a herd of lost floating souls on the sea, welcoming the white spirits on the lands. The white spirits were not lost souls, but dark entities that seek to feed and consume our lands, our people. We learned of dystopia. We learned the meaning of greed, domination, of death. My people slid into the land of dreams, walking in the stars until they find a home once again. Barry liked to talk a lot. Fast-paced and quickly spoken, his language sometimes hard to understand, however his stories were always intriguing. Through the daily educational activities, Joe also learned of cards and gambling games, how to sew suits, quilt dresses. He learned yoga to relax the mind, earned extra coins for treats by making typo craft gifts sold to guards and inmates. Some really good pieces auctioned to charity. Joe learned to clean, and cleaning as cleanliness is godliness, a job he perfected. Joe learns to play poker. The game helps focus his body to relax his mind. Over time, Joe met many faces, people whom had lost the frame of mind, people caught in a loop of time, some of them only climbing the plead of insanity for a lesser punishment for the crimes they committed. Worst of them, a man called James Bain. During Joe's interactions with his new friend, Barry told his origin story and explained how he is really crazy, concluding that he must be because he believes what happened to be true. He felt it. He's seen it with his own eyes. He smelt it. He tasted it on his tongue. His world had changed like the first rising sun. Unbelievably true. But what happened has no proof, no evidence. It can't be repeated. A story so outrageous it's laughable. But still, Barry believes it to be true, landing him in this crazy zoo. Chapter 5. Strange New Friends. A wildlife ranger stuck in a storm. Time forced into a flash. Barry Allen, reborn.
You wouldn't believe it, brother. I'm a qualified wildlife bush ranger. I'll do in my normal routine. A storm rises, gathers above. Lightning crashes, fucking boom, boom, boom. I was shitting myself. I ran to the Jeep, thinking get out of there, fuck me. Foot to the floor, boom, boom, boom. The sound shakes the Jeep. The rain falls, falling heavy. The large droplets cover the windscreen and the wipers come on. Oh shit. Boom, boom, boom. What the fuck is getting closer? Boom, boom, boom. Then fuck me from nowhere. The world's biggest fucking kangaroo was right there next to me. The fucker was massive. Then boom, the fucking thing hit the Jeep. Flipping it to the side, I'm thinking, fuck me, the fucker must be hurt. Then a flash of lightning hits the Jeep, cracking the windscreen. I see the beast light up, its eyes glistening in the reflection of the light. Then it leans back on its tail and with its fucking massive legs kicks the Jeep, sending us rolling down into a gully. I climbed out the broken window, thinking it was gone. Then I hear boom, 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 snap, bang, boom, with the breaking of the branches in the trees. The fuck? He was chasing me. So I ran, boom, boom, boom. Is that the fucking roar of the sound of my heart beating? So I'm running through the gully and down the muddy and bloody hill. At the bottom, it opened to a water hole. So I didn't even think, I just jumped. But you wouldn't believe as I jumped, I was struck by lightning. An electric lightning bolt hit me and forced me down deep into the water hole. Down the bottom, I'm thinking I was going to die or already dead. Eels swim closer, groups of eels biting each shoulder. My body moves along the water's bottom, across the water rocks, up the water's edge. The eels flipping and flapping, waving. They leave me on the water side. Snakes sliver over my body like I'm a part of nature, like I'm a warm, bloody rock. There I lay still, used, until boom, boom! I sat up covered in mud, slipping and sliding to get out of the mud. I feel something new, reborn or some shit like that, you know? The boom, boom, boom! Ah, fuck me. So I get up and I fucking run. I run fast. Boom, 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 boom behind me. Run! I reckon this thing gonna get ya. I can go faster. Run, Barry, run! I try faster and faster. Vroom, faster I go. Bullshit, fuck me, Barry. Run, fuck Barry, run, I said to myself. Boom, 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 it's right behind ya. Faster, Barry. I remember, all turned to a blur. As I run faster, all seemed to disappear into light. Silence, and then I stopped running. I was naked, in a place I didn't know, flashing lights surrounding me, my heart pounding. Then, bang! I'm tackled to the ground by some big fella in a SWAT suit, bagged me head and dragged me here. Crazy, right?
Not so crazy, as Joe would soon learn. Master ingredients for the game of poker, an annual tournament, a yearly event of poker to involve all qualifying inmates. Joe learns that facial expressions are a key factor in the art of poker. The cloths and bandages that cover his face need to be removed. For so many years, the face hidden behind healing wounds and emotional damage. Little did Joe know his face had long healed, concluding all affected areas had been healed days after Kent's experiments ended. The tissue had healed, but viscous scars remained. Joe had the faintest memories of Kent's experiments. The memories slowly faded into dreams, leading to the land of nightmares. The experiments had exponentially increased the healing factors of the skin, organs, blood cells, but the healing had its limitations. The affected wounds would heal but not regenerate, turning wounds to scars. Limbs could not be regrown. Broken bones healed in moments, cuts closed in seconds, but the evidence of injury remained. You see, it was the nurses who were afraid of Joe's face. It was a reaction of repulsion to scar tissue that embedded a permanent expression on such a young boy's face, so they covered it up and hid it from the world. A face to embrace a new race of carefree people. Joe hears the whispers of gossips echoing down a long hall. The Kent files had led to an investigation with evidence of home experimentations found at his address after his death. Radioactive materials ceased. They contain a foreign compound named kryptonite. They got all this other equipment for who knows what. Kent had his own reasons for doing what he had done. His boy Bruce had been injured in a backyard tragedy, falling from a treehouse that was high up in a tree. However, one day, like all other days, Bruce climbed to the top of the treehouse onto the roof. As Master Bruce waved to the imagined followers below, as he sang out, "Hello, my people! I am the king of the castle!" He fell, falling meters and almost to his death. His undies had broken some of the fall as they held to a branch before the elastic gave way. His spine had been damaged and he could no longer walk. For months he was unseen. Then he was miraculously healed and walked again. But as fate would have it, his father died, and so did his knowledge of Bruce's healing. Even if it was the work of God, you still need a witness. But with all that equipment, who knows what he had done to that poor little child? Conversations overheard in passing moments and investigating interviews with the nursing staff and psychologists that cared for Joe. Before his unmasking moment, standing in a mirror's reflection, a moment of silence is disturbed by an image over his left shoulder. Bane stands behind him with a vicious look of sin in his eyes. Bane says,
"You can't play poker in that mask. Where's your fucking face? Show me your face. Show me your face. Show me your face."
Joe replies,
"Fuck off, dickface."
Bane rages at such a simple insult, changing at Joe and grabbing Joe's head with his big fist, smashing Joe's face into glass. Joe is shocked and laughs.
"What the fuck? You think this is funny? Fuck you, funny man."
Bane spits verbal insults as his fist clenches for an uppercut. The brute force lifting Joe off his feet, his bottom jaw smashing to his upper lip without haste. Bane pulls back. The force of 10-ton trucks hit Joe's face. Teeth cracked and broke. Blood fills his mouth, but no pain is felt. Broken he is, but in pain he is not. Joe on the floor against the wall spits the blood and teeth from his mouth and says,
"Hey, Bane, is that all you've got?"
Bane raged, charging again. Joe from the floor kicks up into Bane's face, sending him off balance and into a wall. Joe laughs like a hunter concerning prey. Joe jumps onto Bane's chest like a raging bull for riding. Joe then grabs him by the head with both hands on each side, then lowers his face to Bane's without hesitation. Joe bites into Bane's nose, gripping with his jagged, broken teeth. Bane squeals in pain as his nose is being torn from his face. With nothing to grab, Bane holds the blood-filled cloth that bandages Joe's face. Bane's squeals reminds Joe of his hometown Banshee. Making direct eye contact with Joe for the first time, the green of his eyes illuminate, hypnotic. Bane pulls the red-stained cloths and bandages, peeling them from the fresh wounds and coagulated blood on Joe's face in an attempt to keep his nose from being ripped off. As Bane's nose is removed from his face, so are the bandages covering Joe's wounded flesh, revealing Joe's unseen face, exposing a freakish flesh of a smiling man. Joe laughs at the victim yet to be.
A rat looking for dominance? I see. Well, swell. Let's peel his face like a potato and open up his brain like a tuna top. I want to see his face on my wall. I want to know what makes this rat think he is a man.
Joe exclaimed while using Bane's nose like a cigar. While he spoke, Bane's blood dribbles down his hand and stains of blood cover his scarred lips like cherries. Joe laughs and parades around Bane. Bane screams out,
"You're fucking crazy, freak! Crazy, fucking crazy, freak! My nose! My fucking nose!"
Joe turns around and says,
"Really? Who would have a nose? Don't think anyone would nose out."
Joe then violently smashes his foot into Bane's mouth, then stomps down hard to the ground, forcing Bane's jaw to dislocate, followed by his face as his head hits the floor. By this time, alarms have been set, alerting staff and over the speaker, "Crisis in room 102! As guards enter, both men lay unconscious on the floor of the cell. Hospitalized and operated on for hours, both end up with new additions to their face. Joe's broken teeth mended with silver fillings and his wounds rapidly healed. Bane now fitted with a breathing apparatus permanently strapped to his head, breathing through tubes attached to his face. Bane never to make eye contact with Joe again." Chapter 6. The Escape. The start of a long game of the rabbit and the fox, always one to rescue the other. Leading up to the great poker tournament, entertainment was invited to rehearse in a hall where the games are played. As advertised to the participating residents over the speaker system, a circus act, one to bring magic and wonder, to provide entertainment in the intermissions. Our inmates are sponsored by private founders, whose generous donations are put towards the asylum's rehabilitation programs. Each qualifying inmate is sponsored by an individual who remains unknown for privacy and confidentiality. Winners are pampered and entitled to participate in programs with entitlements provided, a key function for successful transaction back into the world. Making qualification rounds, Joe began making his self-tailored suit, perfect in every way, extra pockets to stash the halftime intermission snacks, the delicious sweets. Between electroshock therapy, setting up foundations for a party and cleaning ceilings, a woman practiced on stage almost constantly. In costume and makeup, she seemed familiar. From the hugging hoops she sang, from hoops to silks like jungle vines, then disappearing in the red curtain's shadow. Little did he know, Quinn now going by her alter ego, Harley Quinzel. She joined a circus that will soon entertain those at the asylum where her loved one is held. Was joining the circus a coincidence? Doubting so. more so by intelligence and dedication, Harley gaining the place of an acrobat over just a few small weeks. She infiltrates the asylum, copying security cards. Sometimes she pretended to be a psychotherapist. Was this out of curiosity? Maybe so, but she filled the role just like any qualified person would. She plotted an escape for two while mastering circus arts and gymnastics. During her travels, she learned a lot. Powered by love, she learned the art of scamming cons too.
You do what you have to do to survive, because life is for the living.
Quinn would use these words often, almost like a catchphrase. During a night like all other nights, Joe is woken in the darkness by giggling through his open unlocked door. He walked to the open door to a long corridor. A whisper of laughter echoes down the cold draught hall. The sound of a bell bounces around the walls. Joe passes by Barry's room, looking through the small box window to see electricity shaking Barry violently. There was no headpiece, no wires, just straps holding him down, as the blue electric current sparked shooting trails of light all over his body in a self-contained electric storm.
Am I dreaming?
Joe asked himself. The sounds of a bell draws him closer through the silence of the walkway. A calling is heard.
This way, silly! Quickly, before you get caught!
A female voice can be heard in the darkness. Joe is quickly pulled sideways into the cleaner's closet. A familiar voice explained,
I have a plan. Just follow my lead. When it's time, I'll give you a sign, okay?
Joe, surprised and stunned, asks,
Am I dreaming? What's happening?
She replies,
Oh, my dear, what have they done? You're all drugged up and not having fun. Wake up, silly. You've slept for too long. I love this ugly face. We will escape. Now go back to your room. Remember to stay off the meds, Mr. J, and wait for my signal.
Joe makes his way back to his room to fall back asleep and is remembered as a dream. In an unseen room with unseen people, unheard by others, a conversation is held. I heard the disappearing act in the last intermission was an act to surely impress, as they picked someone at random and bring them on stage and vroom, they're gone. One of the private founders exclaimed from high in the witness box, placing wedges of notes for wages of millions on each game, others on winners and foldouts, who advances and who loses out. Like a horse in a race rally, at the end there is only one first place. Live gambling at its greediest. Working his way through the ranks, Joe working with the cleaner heads and taking the dreamlike advice from a voice in the night to stay off the meds. The excitement builds in the final rounds. Feeling clever in his suit, Joe stood tall. With his permanent smile, dark circles hide his eyes that gloom from under the brow, and neatly groomed green hair. An individual indeed. The backings got bigger and the wages grew higher. The founders dribble as they chase the winner sensation. Watching from a round table in the Skyview station, the founders overview through a mirrored glass and display screens. 4 Packer tables turned to 2, 2 to 1, last table and still standing. Joe joined the last remaining contestants at the final table. The intermission begins. The act opens with lights and glitter and glam. One act follows the other, until drum rolls lead to popping balloons as ribbons fall from the roof. The spotlight circles the room 3 times before landing on Joe. It's you! A sign from above, a magical journey beginning for you. The announcer stages. The confetti fell in all colors. Like a rainbow of snow, they slowly fall to the floor. The announcer introduced the next and final act as Joe makes his way to the stage. Ladies and gentlemen, never tried before, we will send this young man into the vacuum zone, a zone free of time, free of confined space, a world hidden within our own, a place of the unknown. Surprise! You're our lucky chosen one. chosen for the disappearance act by the beautiful Harley Quinzel. In the magic box Joe went, alakazee, alakazam, bam! Waving his hands through the puff of smoke, opening the box to see, the man disappeared into thin air. Checking the box, he's here and he's there and he is everywhere, the man states as the crowd is mystified in wonder. Ooh! Ah! And whispers break out. Now let's bring him back, shall we? Just need to close it again and say the magic words. Alakazee, alakazam, we see the young man again. Ta-da! He said to finish his act, but he opens an empty box. Wait, will we try again? He says as they all laugh. Closing the doors. Alakazam, alakazam, alakazam! Waving his hands across the box. Now I will open it again and see the young man. The box remained empty. Panic breaks out on stage. Whispers trickle through the audience, who think it's still a part of the show. The magician states, ladies and gentlemen, the young man is gone. The audience laughs. No, really, he's gone. It's not a part of the act. He is gone. As the man searches the magic box, feeling around with his hands. I don't understand, he mutters to himself. Security bells sound. Staff frantic. A search breaks out. The founders start to pack their money and hide their suits in a panicked rush. Cracking sounds come from the ceiling. Two people come crashing through the roof. Harley Quinzel and Mr. Joe Kingman fall onto the table where the founders held their gambling funds. A mountain of money crashes, breaking their fall. Smash, bang, boom! The facility in lockdown. The founders ran for the exit to no escape.
Holy fuck, Mr. J! Look at all this cash!
Grab what you can and burn the rest,
Joe stated. As the founders stood in terror watching bags of millions walking out the door, Harley Quinn with an exit plan led the way through a vent on the side wall, leaving behind them a wall of flames that crawled over all, consuming the building. Only a few, including Barry, made it out alive. A great escape, the rise of the most powerful couple to go against the law, one to rescue the other, the rabbit and the fox, prince and princess of crime, layer by layer becoming Joe Kingman. A short fan fiction story written by Dylan Brassington, edited by Bianca Elmire, read by Maria Stoyanovska.